Welcome to this edition of Head to Head. I'm Cam McKinney, and this is episode number 328 of the podcast. And on this episode, I am talking about the up and down nature of the Boston Red Sox. In the middle of the season, the Boston Red Sox fans and media members were all celebrating the fact that the Red Sox were in serious playoff contention. And now, as I record this podcast, they are 2 games above 500, and it's beginning to feel like the exact same story of the last 2 years. The Red Sox are not an awful baseball team, and they haven't been one in recent years. They have been somewhat decent, and then by August, they completely bottom out. What I find particularly frustrating with this year's team is they found a way to fall apart in a way that no one would have expected offensively. I and many thought that the pitching staff would be their undoing, but their bats have gone silent. Their best player, Rafael Devers, had a .210 batting average in the month of August after hitting close to 300 the entire season, and all of their offensive players are struggling at the exact same time. First baseman Tristan Casas has come back from injury, but he's not producing. The only guy who has been hitting is outfielder Jarren Duran, and as good as he can be, he's not good enough to carry a team the way that Devers can. So I think the big question for this year's Red Sox team is, however they're going to end the season, is that going to impact how you felt about the season as a whole, or are we going to remember it as different sections of the season? The first half of the season, they were a 500 team. Then during the middle of the season, they were one of the best teams in baseball, and now they are playing again like a 500 baseball team. And here's how I feel about the team. I think there are good things that have come from this season. Tanner Houck becoming a proven starting pitcher is a very good thing for the Boston Red Sox moving forward. That being said, I do not believe he should be the ace of your staff. Brayan Bello is not going to be the ace of your staff. So if neither Houck or Bello are going to step up and become the ace of your staff, what you're going to have to do this offseason is go outside of your organization and sign an ace starting pitcher. And I believe the name the Boston Red Sox should go after this offseason is Blake Snell. A pitching staff with a 1-2 punch of Blake Snell and Tanner Houck sounds really good to me right about now. Because if you have 2 to 3 really good starting pitchers, I even like the idea of Blake Snell, Tanner Houck, and Brayan Bello, and then after that, you can mix and match. But then you wouldn't have to do these desperate moves the Red Sox tried to do this trade deadline, where they brought back in James Paxton. Surprise, surprise, he got hurt. And then this past week, they released Rich Hill after some people were saying that Rich Hill was the best lefty pitcher on the Red Sox pitching staff. I mean, that's just insane if that were true. I believe Blake Snell should be their primary pitching target this offseason. Now, he's going to cost you some money, but you are the Boston Red Sox. I don't think you're going to have to give him $200 million, but if he opts out of his deal with the Giants, just go the 150 range, go the 160 range. I believe Blake Snell is worth it for what the Red Sox need right now. But now, looking at the Boston Red Sox, you have to look at offensively. They need offense, and maybe they can undo a mistake that was done this past offseason when they didn't sign Teoscar Hernandez, who had a really good season with the Dodgers, and now you're going to have to give him even more money than you didn't want to give him in the first place. No one thinks the Red Sox are going to be in on Juan Soto. That price is going to be way too high for an organization that doesn't want to spend like they used to. A guy they should be in on is Anthony Santander. He's in the division with the Orioles. He's putting up his best offensive season to date. Now that's a bat you add to the lineup. Just give him a 4-year contract with a lot of money up front. You don't have to make these super long-term commitments. Just spend the money. A lineup that has Anthony Santander instead of Tyler O'Neill, that's a huge upgrade to me. I mean, ideally next season you have Trevor Story at shortstop. You don't know what he's going to be offensively, but you know he's capable defensively. You're going to have Tristan Casas back fully healthy. You're going to have Rafael Devers. Add a big bat like Teoscar Hernandez or Anthony Santander, and now we're really talking, and you won't have to go through these miserable offensive slumps. And I know there are some fans of the Red Sox who think that when they were at their best this season, it was when they were playing small ball. That's nice, but you're the Boston Red Sox. Go out and sign a guy who can hit 30 to 35 bombs and drive in 100 runs. The problem with Tyler O'Neill is he's going to hit close to 30 home runs, but then he's not even going to end the season with 70 runs batted in. You need guys who drive in runs. You have Jarren Duran, who's getting on base at a really good rate. Now sign a guy who who can drive him in more often than not. Because what you're seeing this season is that Rafael Devers cannot do it alone for an entire season. He's going to go through streaks where he looks like the best hitter in baseball, and then he's going to have streaks like he's having currently. This year for the Red Sox proves to me something that I've always known as a fan of the Red Sox these last few years, is this is a team that it's all or nothing. They're either great or 500 or below. They can never have a season where they quietly win 86 games and barely miss the playoffs. In life, we are taught the valuable lesson that things are not always black and white, but with the Red Sox it is. They are either good or bad. At one point this season, the Red Sox played like they were one of the best teams in baseball, and now they have played like one of the worst. A middle ground would be nice, and the up and down nature of this season means they could go on another up, but I don't think it will be enough to ultimately make the playoffs. I mean, there was a point in the season where the team had really turned around. They were one of the best teams in baseball. Their manager had signed a long-term contract agreement to stay with the team. We were all super high on the Red Sox. Then the trade deadline happened. They made some moves that ultimately I don't think have paid off. But in there are some things that make you feel good about the future of the team, and I think that is important. Rafaela is going to be a cornerstone of this team. Tanner Houck is going to be a cornerstone of this team. I don't know about Jared Duran. There are some people who think this is his one-off great season. I'm going to be interested to see what he is next year. But then there are some players on this team that I just don't know how to feel about. Yoshida had a terrible start to the season. Then he got red hot. Then Rafael Devers got hurt, so you had to play him at DH a little, so you had to sit Yoshida. I don't know how to feel about this player. I don't know if Masataka Yoshida can put together a complete and entire great season. The same thing goes for Tyler O'Neill if you bring him back. I mean, there were points this year where he was carrying the team, but there were so many solo home runs, and he was the only hot hitter. But the Red Sox were playing at their best when Tyler O'Neill was making an impact on the team. So I don't know if it's a good idea to move on from Tyler O'Neill. I think it's only a good idea to move on from him if you have a better option. Again, say Teoscar Hernandez or Anthony Santander. The big question mark now is Tristan Casas. If you believe Tristan Casas is one of these guys who's going to become a 300 hitter who can hit 35 to 40 homers and drive in 110 runs, and if he can become that, that would be a huge difference maker for the Boston Red Sox. He missed a significant amount of time. They had Dominic Smith be his replacement while they were out, and that team looked really good with Dominic Smith, and then they moved on from Dominic Smith, and Tristan Casas did not produce. In hindsight, they probably should have kept Dominic Smith to be insurance for Tristan Casas if he doesn't come back and become that same guy, and so far he has not. Something that annoys me as a fan of this team is the last few years it always can never be about the here and now. It always has to be about what's coming down the line. Oh, we got some young minor leaguers who could step up and become franchise core players. That's really nice, but back in the day, you used to have a mix of the two. 2007 is my favorite year as a fan of the Boston Red Sox because you had these veteran players, Kevin Youkilis, Mike Lowell, Manny Ramirez, David Ortiz, mixed in with these young guys, Dustin Pedroia, Jacoby Ellsbury. They had the perfect mix of the past and the future, like they were doing both things at the same time. They were competing and developing young players. During that time period, they also developed John Lester and Clay Buchholz into really good starting pitchers. It is possible for a team to both compete for a postseason berth and a World Series title and develop young players. I think the Red Sox are trying to sell us all on this idea that you can only do one thing at a time. That if you make that big trade at the trade deadline and go all in, then you're sacrificing your future. And I think that is false. The Astros' current run is indicative of that. They have lost some of those first players that were part of that original core. George Springer and Carlos Correa moved on, but Cole Tucker, Yordan Alvarez, they have become the franchise players. The Astros were able to develop those players while still winning at a super high rate. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. Tanner Houck and Cutter Crawford started off the season lights out, but anyone could have seen this downfall coming for both of those pitchers. What the Red Sox should have done is at the trade deadline, trade for a veteran pitcher or two so that you could rest these young guys so they wouldn't have to help carry you to a postseason berth so that they could feel good about their season. Now Cutter Crawford has become a guy who gives up multiple home runs every game because he's never had to pitch this much in a season. The same for Tanner Houck. You're asking too much of your young pitchers. Whereas in 2007, when the Red Sox were developing John Lester and Clay Buchholz, they also had the likes of Curt Schilling, Josh Beckett to eat those innings, so they didn't have to rely on the young pitching until later on in their careers. That's how you develop young players. You don't just all of a sudden go, oh, I guess Tanner Houck is my ace. We're going to see how this plays out. Oh, Cutter Crawford is my number 2 pitcher. We're going to see how this plays out. No, you don't rely on them like this. It never should have been the plan. And don't give me this Lucas Giolito got injured, so they had to rely on these pitchers more. That is complete and utter nonsense. Lucas Giolito hasn't been a very good pitcher in the last few seasons anyway. I think there are serious question marks when it comes to both the pitching and the hitting of this organization moving forward. Tanner Houck, Brian Bayo, and Cutter Crawford are not sure things moving forward. You do not know what you are going to get from them each and every start. And I'm not even one of these people who believe that they should have kept Chris Sale. I do not believe that if Chris Sale were on the Boston Red Sox right now, he would be on the precipice of winning the American League Cy Young Award. He's going to win that because he's on the Atlanta Braves, a team that is a lot better than the Boston Red Sox. Saying all that, it would have been nice to have a veteran pitcher who has something to prove. That's the narrative around Chris Sale, is that he had everything to prove and nothing to lose. We were all down on Chris Sale, and now he's going to have one of the most surprising Cy Young seasons in the history of baseball. Now, where I will criticize them is who they got back for Chris Sale. I mean, Vaughn Grissom didn't exactly become the franchise second baseman many predicted he would be. The hope is that moving forward, Craig Breslow understands that all of the pressure is on him now. The team has competed to a level where we all think that they should. No one believes this team on paper is a 90-win baseball team. They are who they are. If they want to become that and become a team that can win a division, then they need to make outside moves. They need to either make trades or make big free agent signings. Because if your plan is just to hope that the best case scenario happens for each and every player, I have bad news for you. That's not going to be the case. Not everything is going to work out for the Red Sox. So on paper, yes, if Tristan Casas becomes David Ortiz and Rafael Devers becomes Manny Ramirez, yes, you're going to look good for the next few years. But if that's not the case, you have to have a backup plan. You have to go outside of the organization and make some signings. And I think it should be in the pitching staff, and I think they could use one more big bat to this lineup. I mean, I haven't even brought up the future of the bullpen. Kenley Jansen's future with the Red Sox is really up in the air. He's going to be a free agent. The Red Sox are not going to want to give him any kind of money whatsoever. What's really maddening about the Red Sox is their recent poor play really could have been avoided if more moves were made during the trade deadline. I mean, acting like James Paxton was going to have any impact on your organization whatsoever was ridiculous. And the same thing for Rich Hill. I mean, sure, it was a cute story. Rich Hill again comes out of retirement and pitches for the Boston Red Sox, but it was never going to make a difference to what was happening to the Red Sox. It was a desperation move. Here's another lesson that I think was learned, that I think the Red Sox still haven't learned this lesson. I don't think that Rafael Devers should be the best player on a baseball team. I think he's an elite bat. I think he's become a decent enough third baseman, although we could really debate that one. I don't think Rafael Devers should be your best player. My favorite version of him was when he was playing with the likes of Mookie Betts and Xander Bogaerts, and he was just a piece of your organization. Him being the entire thing, he clearly doesn't even want to be your best player. Now he's not talking to the media. He called out the organization this offseason about the lack of moves they made during the offseason, and now he won't even answer questions himself about his bad play or about his injury or lack thereof. Devers doesn't give me the feeling of somebody who wants to be the absolute face of the Red Sox organization the way that David Ortiz was. David Ortiz was constantly talking to the media, whether he wanted to or not. He gave his opinions about the current state of the Boston Red Sox. And now during one of the major down points of the season, Rafael Devers refused to talk to the media. And I know there are fans out there who don't care if players talk to the media. I think that's what goes with being the best player on an organization. Aaron Judge talks to the media about the Yankees when the Yankees are playing good or when the Yankees are playing bad. And I think we should all expect the same thing out of Rafael Devers. They gave him the ridiculous contract not only to put up the stats, but to be the face of the organization. And I think I can make the case that he's not being the best face of the organization right now. Because of his lack of talking to the media, I have no idea what's going on with his shoulder or his injury. It's all these broadcasters making excuses. Oh, he's not the Rafael Devers he was a month ago because of these injuries. Well, are you saying that? Did he tell you that? I mean, who is talking for Rafael Devers right now? It should be Rafael Devers. And these are the kinds of things that only happen to the Boston Red Sox when they fall apart. Not only do they fall apart on the field, they also fall apart off the field. You had the Jarren Duran situation. You now have the Rafael Devers situation. I mean, it can never be just about baseball. As an organization, they also completely fall apart. And yes, I did hear Alex Cora's excuse as to why Rafael Devers did not talk to the media. He's still a young player learning his way. Rafael Devers is 28 years old and has been with the Red Sox, 7 to 8 years now. He was on the 2018 Boston Red Sox World Series winning team. It's about time he learns by now. He's no longer that young player. He's been on a team that's won the World Series. He's been on another team that went to the American League Championship Series, and he was talking to the media when he was upset by the lack of off-season moves. So if you're willing to talk then, you should be willing to talk now. There are some Red Sox fans out there that don't care if they make the playoffs or not. They just want them to put a good product on the field. I am not one of those fans. I have high expectations when it comes to this organization because I've seen what they've done. I've lived through 2004, 2007, 2013, 2018, even 2021. I've seen those teams succeed, and I want the Red Sox to get back to that, and I don't believe we should be 5 years away from that. I just don't believe this is a long-term play. The Red Sox are not in rebuild mode. Playing Tyler O'Neill is not rebuilding. And I know with this organization, it always goes back to the money, and so many people are saying they want to be like the Tampa Bay Rays. Well, guess what? The Tampa Bay Rays also win a lot of baseball games while doing the thing where they don't spend money. The Red Sox have not been doing that lately. So if they are trying to be the Tampa Bay Rays, they're not even doing a good job at that. I just don't agree with this idea, well, as long as the Red Sox are a fun team to watch, then I'm okay with the state of the Boston Red Sox. No, I want the Red Sox to be one of the best teams in baseball because they are still one of the signature organizations in baseball. They're up there with the Cubs. They're up there with the Yankees. They're up there with the Dodgers. The Red Sox are big names, and I don't care about ownership. I know ownership's not going to change anytime soon. I believe that the fixes for the Red Sox are not that big of an ask. I don't need the Red Sox to spend $500 million this offseason. Just get me Blake Snell or Teoscar Hernandez or Anthony Santander, and I would be a happy camper. And I don't know, maybe next year play some good baseball in August, one of the most important months in all of baseball, where you could establish yourself as a real playoff team instead of a team that's hunting for a third wild card spot. The Minnesota Twins and the Kansas City Royals were begging you to take that third wild card spot. They were both playing really bad baseball. If the Red Sox had played some of their best baseball in August, I wouldn't even have to record this podcast. They would be in the playoffs right now, but that's not what happened. The same old Red Sox were the same old Red Sox. Yes, there were real positives this season, and that's a good thing, but there were also a lot of negatives, and some negatives I didn't even expect there to be at the end. I mean, how could the Boston Red Sox collapse offensively at the end of a season? They're usually one of the best offensive teams, and Rafael Devers falling apart isn't a big enough excuse. We can't keep doing this. Not all of your seasons can come down to, did Rafael Devers have a good August, September? That cannot be the case. You are the Boston Red Sox. I demand more from you. I feel like I say this about every offseason, but this should be a big offseason for the Red Sox, and I do think they're going to make moves. Do I think they're going to bring in Blake Snell? I don't have the answer to that. Do I think they're going to bring back Teoscar Hernandez or Anthony Santander? I don't have the answer to that. That's what I want them to do. And if you're a fan of the team, you should too. Thanks for listening to this edition of Head to Head. I'm Cam McKinney, and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every Monday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, so please rate, review, and subscribe.